we want to talk about a very quick story of how Prodigy started. The year was around 2008, 2007 timeframe when the world was basically going through a global recession, and that's when one gentleman from South Africa, Mr. Cameron Stevens, who happens to be the co-founder and CEO of Prodigy Finance, was looking to go for his MBA at a top reputed business school in France, in Europe. But it turns out that because he was basically an international student, he was not a national of France. He was unable to secure his student loan, and because of that, he had to really literally defer his admission and actually wait for one full year to actually start his MBA at the French business school called INSEAD. Once he started his MBA, he realized that a lot of international students were facing the similar problem that he did in terms of financing their studies. So obviously, credit in general is very easy and relatively easy to get locally if you are from the same nationality. But if you're crossing borders, that's when it becomes very, very challenging. So with that in mind, he decided to sort of make sure that this problem is solved at a very large scale, and that was the idea of Prodigy. And fast forward so many years to today, Prodigy has been around and it has been lending successfully to students who are going for their international studies to countries such as the US, Europe, and also in Asia. So far, we have funded about 20,000 plus students. In terms of loan value, that stands about $1 billion in cumulative loans that we have originated. In terms of schools, we have about 750 plus schools and universities that we support. And in terms of nationalities, we have funded 150 plus nationalities across the globe. So that's basically a quick story of Prodigy Finance. We believe in the fact that access to education should be barrierless, should be borderless, and that's why we are funding international students to fulfill their dreams, and we are helping them in their journey to study abroad. With that in mind, let me introduce you to Yannis, who is our panel member, who happens to be a Prodigy customer and went to London Business School for his master's in management. I'll hand over to Yannis to give his quick introduction, and then we can proceed further.
Sure. Hi, Mayank. How are you? Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So my name is Yannis Chatzilakos, and I'm from Greece. I was born and raised in a small city there called Drama in an engineering family. So by the time I was 18, I had a love for maths and technology, so I decided to go for electrical engineering because it would give me a lot of options post graduation. But the truth is, halfway through my undergrad in engineering, through a strange coincidence, I discovered finance and the world of investments. So I started doing a lot of reading on my own and even day trading to some extent. And by the time I graduated from engineering school, I knew that I wanted to go into investments. I had a scholarship and I did a master's in finance and banking in Greece. And after graduating from there, I came here to London Business School, and I attended the master's in management program. While I was here, I was working as a research assistant, and as soon as I graduated, I joined Aviva Investors for a 3-month internship. And after that, I joined Helix Equities, which is a private investment firm here in London that invests in public and private markets across the capital structure. And I was working there as an equity analyst until June. And a couple of weeks ago, I joined Craig Asset Management, which is another long short equity hedge fund based here in London.
Cool, Yannis. Thanks for this. Let me then basically move to a quick, let's say, round of questions that I would like Yannis to answer, which probably will help all of you attendees to sort of understand what was the thinking and what was the story behind Yannis's journey. So I think first of all, Yannis, I'd like to ask you, why did you decide to do a master's in the first place?
Sure. So as I said, I had an engineering background, but I wanted to make a career change to finance. So as I graduated in 2016 from engineering in Greece, and I had a scholarship to do actually a master's in finance and banking in Greece, and study also for my CFA. And I thought that would be the first step towards making a shift towards finance, which was my interest has developed throughout the years while I was at the engineering school. However, while I was studying and during the first couple of months of this master's in Greece, I tried to applying for jobs here in London, finance jobs here in London, and I couldn't even get through screening because even though I had a good degree, the companies I worked for in Greece, people wouldn't recognize either the university or the company, so I wouldn't get even through the first step of the screening. And it was then that I realized that I need to take the next step. So if I want to come to London, I need to find a degree and a master's that is for a university that is based here, that is worldwide recognizable, and that will give me access to the job market here in London, together with all the knowledge and all the other benefits. But the first thing that prompted me was that, okay, I want to do a career change. I want to come in London, so I need to find, to get effectively go to the best business school I can find in London. So that was the first thing that motivated me.
Got it. Got it. So that also answers this question that why London Business School, right? You were actually looking for the best business school out there, and although there were other schools such as Oxford and Cambridge, you wanted to be in a city of London, be in a central located place, and also obviously pick a school which is really reputed and recognizable around the world, right?
Yeah, and well, I know this is a Prodigy Finance, and people will think, oh, this is, but actually, back in 2017, Prodigy Finance was a London Business School, and the master's programs in London Business School were one of the few programs that could be funded by Prodigy Finance. Most other programs in London back then were MBA programs. So for me to be able to come here to London, I needed definitely to find funding because my family couldn't support me. So one of the major decisions to go to London Business School was also the fact that I couldn't find financing in any other way apart from Prodigy Finance to be able to cover the whole cost of the tuition fee. Apart from all the great benefits that you get from going to London Business School, it was a major point because otherwise, if I couldn't, it was LBS was the only program I applied to, and if I couldn't get in, I wouldn't come because I couldn't afford it.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Just to understand a little bit more in terms of, let's say, a quick question around visa, right? Did you face any problems around your visa process? Was it easy? Was it difficult? How did you go through that?
No, because I was a European, I had a European passport. It was very straightforward for me to come to the UK back then. We didn't need to apply for a visa. I had many friends from other places, and we don't know what's going to happen post Brexit with all the visa situation, how that is going to evolve. But any friends I had that actually needed to apply from visa, maybe because they came from Asia, for example, where we had many people from Asia and they need to apply. The process was very smooth. LBS, they were very helpful to help them get through the process. I didn't hear of anyone missing any time for school because they couldn't get the visa. So I think the whole process was very straightforward. As soon as you do the paperwork right, there shouldn't be any issues.
Got it. Then let's say moving on to your study period, right? When you were actually in London, can you maybe talk a little bit about how was your life in London? How were you sort of balancing between the study and also sort of having fun and networking and all those elements that are required during the course?
Of course. Well, my year at LBS was one of the best years of my life because yeah, I developed in so many different ways. First, you develop. Let's break it down into three different baskets. First, academically, because you're in the same class group with people from all over the world, and you make discussions about real world problems, and you learn so many things about what you're actually interested in, where you want to go into. So you develop a lot academically. Apart from that, there is a big part of life at LBS and in many of the world's best business schools and other universities are all the extracurriculars and all the activities you can do that complement the core course. So maybe the global immersion field trip where you travel and to meet companies, or all the clubs where they offer specializations for whatever you want to do. There is a club that focuses on that, not only sports clubs, but for specific interests. Even there was a foodie club for people that were foodies and they were going out and tasting restaurants. And then personally, because you make friends throughout uni, both from from the Masters in Management program I was at, but also you get the chance to meet MBAs and more senior people that have more experience than you, especially through the clubs and all those complementary activities. So you try. Well, it was a very intense year, but you learn so much and it goes fast so quickly that as soon as you have a plan and you try to stick to it, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun both in and out of uni, and while also trying, of course, to find a job, which is most of the things that most people that want to start a master's, that's one of their first top of their mind. So this is also a big part of the process as well.
Makes sense. And now that you mentioned job, right?
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk about what was your strategy for job search? Like, when did you start thinking about it? What was your overall plan, and were you able to stick to the plan or not?
Yeah. So here at LBS, they have a career center and they have many resources. The first week is actually a week that's mostly dedicated to your career progression. So they do a lot of workshops where you go through how to build your CV, networking, all the key skills that will be required throughout the year. And then because I want to go into finance, recruiting starts rather early, and you have to apply by November, and then there is a long process. I actually had to do many applications, even though I found an internship in February. By then I had done 52 applications, and actual applications, not just sending a CV, because I think something I want to clarify is that getting into a business school or at a great university, it's going to open many opportunities for you, but you'll have to work hard to find the job of your dream, right? So because many people, especially back home, they had the misconception that, oh, you went to LBS or Oxford or wherever here in London, you're going to find a job straight away. For some people this is true, but in many cases, because you compete with the best from all over the world, you have to work for it. But it may take different time frames, so some people may find early, some people may find late, but everyone eventually gets what they want, but you have to work for it. So my plan was to apply, start applying, and I had a list for all the companies, and I tried to apply them, try to find which had internship programs and graduate programs, and I was applying to each one, and I eventually found Aviva Investors, which was one of my first choices, but the whole process took effectively 6 months because you apply in October and the assessment center is in February. I had some other friends that found what they were looking for in December, some found it in May, so it varies a lot, and some people have even found jobs that they would never thought they would find 2 months after graduating. So it varies a lot, I would say, and it's an individual case. But if you work for it, I'm 100% certain that you will get it.
Got it. Maybe if you can talk a little bit about networking, right? And how did you do it? And being in London, did it really help in terms of networking? Would you sort of more talk on phone? Would you set up meetings one-on-one? How did you sort of go about it?
Sure. Well, I think that the London location of London Business School plays a critical role because, as you said, with networking, in many cases, we would start by sending a LinkedIn message either to an alumni of the school, where the alumni are usually very close to the school and they're responsive, and then they can organize a coffee chat. So you would send initially a LinkedIn message, or maybe meet someone at one of the many events that are organized at the school, the career events. And being here in London helps a lot because someone can tell you, oh yeah, come tomorrow at lunchtime and we can have a coffee chat. If someone sends the same from France, for example, it's more difficult. So there's the proximity of being here next to the companies come to the events, you can go actually and meet them through the various initiatives that are organized. Some people, for example, do pro bono consulting projects. Now at LBS for the Masters in Management program, where you go and work for 2 months effectively with the company. This is very hard to do remotely, although with COVID now, this changes, but definitely the London location and these connections you can build. So I think LinkedIn messages, sometimes emailing people and trying to get coffee chats, trying to learn more about the company and trying to build a relationship. And if they like you, then that can help a lot during the recruiting further down the road.
Makes sense. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Yannis. And maybe from your memory, if you can just talk about how was your experience of the Prodigy loan process, right? Just like how are you feeling if you remember while going through the process? Was
Of
it
course.
easy?
No, it was a very straightforward process. So as I told you, Prodigy Finance and the decision to come to LBS, Prodigy Finance was one of the key parts for my decision to come here. So I applied late because I was doing my previous masters, and I applied in early April. I did for LBS, right? I did the interview, and then in early June I had the offer. But because I was late, they told me that I think in 1 or 2 weeks you have to put the first deposit. And if I didn't have the Prodigy loan, if I didn't have this provision, effectively the first offer where you tell you, yes, we can give you if you give all the documentation, then I wouldn't put the deposit because I wouldn't be able to do it. So I remember I applied, and in the next couple of days, it was the whole application was very straightforward. They asked me for everything, and I put it. And then I got a decision very quickly. I think it was after a couple of days, and this helped me a lot because then I was able to actually say, yes, I'm going to put the deposit and secure it.
Got it. Awesome. Cool. And that, let's say, leads us to a very quick slide which talks about the Prodigy process. I'll go through that in a little bit more detail just for the sake of the audience here. So as Yannis mentioned, right? So you basically go through the Prodigy process. It's a very quick and easy process. It's all fully online. The first step, obviously, is that you have to register online on the Prodigy Finance website. Once you do that, you basically go through a, let's say, step-by-step process where you are asked certain number of questions, right? So, for example, what's your nationality? Where do you sort of reside right now? What's your address? What's your budget? What school? What course are you going to? And all of those things, right? Once you finish those details, that takes about 20 to 30 minutes. You will basically receive what we call a quote, a loan quote, right? A loan quote basically tells you all the details in terms of what is the amount that we will be funding for you and what will be the terms of the loan. By terms of the loan, we basically mean the rate of interest, the years that you will need to repay, and obviously the monthly repayment amount that you will have to repay once you complete the grace period. So then obviously at this point you are free to scout the market, you are free to compare your quote with other lending options that you might have. And if you're satisfied, if you think Prodigy is the best offer out there, you can accept your quote, which is step number 3, as you can see here. And then moving forward, what happens is then you have to supply us with some documents, right? So the documents, for example, you talked about your residence, or you have to provide an address proof and stuff like that. So whatever information you gave us earlier, you need to validate that with supporting documents. Once you upload all required supporting documents, there is a background process which goes on, which we call verification. And under that, all the document and information that you have provided are finally, let's say, reviewed and validated, right? And if all of that happens, this takes about 7 to 10 business days. And then once that happens, we basically give you a loan approval, which basically means that whatever you are asking for in terms of a loan has been approved fully and finally by us. And then there is nothing much that you have to do. What happens then is that couple of weeks before your classes starts, we ask you for signing the loan agreement. which is step number 6. And until or before this step, there is actually no liability you have for the loan, right? Between you and Prodigy, there's no, let's say, contract that has been established until and unless you sign the loan agreement. So in that sense, it's a very commitment-free offer. Even let's say in today's situation where COVID is changing scenario literally every day, you suddenly decide that you no longer want to go for your higher education this year, you want to defer to the next intake, you can change that till the point when you sign the loan agreement, right? And that point is just about 3 weeks, 4 weeks before your classes starts. So once you finally sign the loan agreement, there's the final step, which is basically the disbursement, which goes out directly to the university. And if you have also availed for the living expense, then that money the university transfers to you in your bank account. So that's basically the process in terms of getting the loan. Obviously, then you go on to your studies. At the studies duration, your focus is only your studies and the networking and the job hunting, right? We do not bother you with any kind of, let's say, repayment requirements. You don't have to pay for the 2 years that you study and another 6 months, which we call the grace period. They are also exempt from any kind of payments, right? So our assumption is that after you graduate, we give you another 6 months to settle down in your life. In maybe you're moving a city or you're moving to a new house or whatever. And once that is done, that's when your repayment starts, right? The repayment happens via a Prodigy Finance app, which you can download from Play Store or Apple, and then you can start making those payments back to Prodigy. So that's basically the process in a nutshell. And basically with this, I guess we just want to open up the floor for any questions that you might have. Uh, Obviously, Yannis is here. I'm here to talk about Prodigy related questions. But if you have anything that you want to ask Yannis, he'll be happy to answer. So you see the questions box here. You can just start typing in your questions there, and we will pick questions randomly and start answering them one by one. Cool. So I see that there are a bunch of questions which are already logged in here. So let me go ahead and start answering them. I'll try and alternate between myself and Yannis. Uh, so the first question for Yannis is that what was his GMAT score?
My GMAT, 680.
Yes, 680. So that's for Vijay. Vijay 680 was the GMAT score for Yannis.
And the class average was, if I remember correctly, 683 or somewhere around there.
All right. So there was another question for you, Yannis. How much of the COA and living expense does, oh, well, that's for me, does Prodigy cover? So the answer to that really depends on what school and what geography you are going to study, right? Typically, what happens is for STEM courses in the USA, we do 100% of the COA, but in Europe, it could vary, right? The best way to find out the answer for this is if you just go to Prodigy Finance, register, and start an application based on the school that you are going to, based on the geography that you are going to. You will get a quotation that is specific to your situation, right? And that's the most accurate way to sort of find out how much you will get funded. And that can be done in just 20-30 minutes of your time. So there's another question which talks about, or which is asking, from your experience, how long does it take to repay the loan? So Yannis, you want to take this? You want to talk about what you're thinking in terms of repayment?
Yeah, so in terms of repayment, as you said, there's a period of 6 months, which is effectively because you may be just be starting, maybe doing an internship, so they give you some time to settle down, and then the repayment starts. And in my case, it's done through direct debit every month. It's very straightforward, and they give you the option if you want to repay. In my case, if you want to repay earlier without any penalties, and there is a lot of let's say flexibility about how you want to go with it. Of course, you have to pay every month the repayment, and there is a 10-year period if you want to stay for the full length of it. It depends on each one individual circumstances how fast they're gonna repay the loan.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. I mean, the loan repayment is fully onto the student. There are students, let's say, I mean, I'll also talk about a very, let's say, possible scenario, right? So, especially in US and from top schools like London Business School, when companies come to recruit, they typically also give a signing bonus, right? So there are a lot of students who get that signing bonus from their companies and they use it to repay a chunk of their loan, right? So always remember that the interest that is calculated on the loan is on the outstanding amount. So if you are able to, by whatever means, if you're able to repay at the very starting, let's say $10,000 or something like that, it's advisable to do that because your outstanding balance on the loan will go down, right? So it's really up to you. Whatever is comfortable with your situation, you should go with that in that sense, right? So you should always look at your, let's say, overall life in terms of your expenses, your savings, all of those aspects, and then try to repay what sort of suits you or comforts you. Okay, then switching to the other questions that I see. There's one about the rate of interest. Uh, so just some details around that, right? So the question was like, is it fixed or variable interest rate that we charge? So the answer to that is that our interest rate is comprising of two components. One is the variable component and the other one is the fixed component. The variable component is basically linked to the LIBOR, right? In case of US, it's the USD LIBOR. In case of euros, it's Euribor. So that's the variable thing which keeps on changing every quarter, right? The change is not massive. It's couple of points here and there, but that is basically that's the variable part of the loan. And then obviously there's the other fixed component which is completely linked to you as a person and to where you are going in terms of the school. So that's how the loan is structured. Okay, I'm looking for more questions. So there's a question which is specific to a particular university. So I'm commencing school at University of Pennsylvania fall 2021. How much of the living expenses and tuition can Prodi cover? So uh, I'm assuming is it MBA at Pennsylvania? I believe it will be 100%, but best you check on Prodigy Finance. In this case, if I remember it from my memory, it should be 100% of COA that should be covered. But the best way to find out is just apply online, fill in your details, and you should get the answer. Why I say that, why I'm stressing on that is because the situation might also vary based on your personal finances, right? So it's best and advisable to actually always check yourself rather than sort of rely on those ranges, broad ranges that we can tell you right now. All right, so there's another question. I'd like to study an MBA at a UK university next fall. Where can I find a list of universities there that are in partnership with Prodigy? So I think that's also very easy. The best way is if you go to our website, there's a student loan page, which you will see on the navigation bar. Click on that link, student loan page, and on there you will basically see a box, a sort of text box, free text box where you can start typing. And once you start typing the name of the university, it will come in a drop down, and then you can select whichever university you want to go for, you want to test it out. So that's the best way to find it out. Yeah, so there's another question. Is there an upper limit on the loan amount? Can Prodigy Finance offer 100% of the expenses? So the answer to this, Tanmay, is that yes, there are certain courses depending on the geography and obviously the school where we fund 100% of the cost of attendance. But there are others in which we just fund 100% of the tuition, and there are some in which we fund 80% of the cost of attendance. So there are these three different variations that we fund. Okay, any questions I'm trying to get for Yannis is just looking for those questions which are specific to Yannis. Uh, what information of the applicant do you ask for? Uh, well, I mean, it's basic stuff, right? It's nothing major, and I'm assuming you're talking about the application process here, where we are just asking like basic details about you in terms of who you are, where you live, uh, what's your budget looking like right now, what is the school that you're going, what's the course you're taking, right? These are the basic questions we ask you in terms of the application process. Once you submit that, you get the loan quote, and then after the loan quote, once you are sure that you want to go with the Prodigy offer, that's when we ask you for specific documents, right? So whatever information you had supplied earlier, we want you to validate that with by sending or sharing with us documents which support that. Okay. So there's a question which asks, does Prodigy Finance require collateral against the loan? So the answer to this is no, we do not require any collateral or cosigner. And the reason we don't is because we trust you in the sense of having the admit from a top school like London Business School. We trust you that you will complete your studies, and given the brand that you're going to, it's valuable, and you will basically end up with a very secure and a well reputed company after your graduation, right? So that's for us the biggest thing. We don't second guess you. We don't sort of look at you and say that, hey, you have to put down a property, or you have to put down a certain paper, because we know that you're going to a top school. And for Prodi, that is the biggest filter. And we that's why we work with very selected schools, right? If you look at it, we just have about 750 schools that we support, and these are all top schools and top universities across the globe. And for us, that's single biggest filter. Okay, trying to look at more questions. So there's a question about sharing the list of top 200 MBA programs that Prodi supports. I would say you can look at FT, the list, Financial Times list for MBA. That's where we basically started. So we support all FT ranked schools. That's the best way to sort of go for Prodigy as well. Any questions for Yannis? Yeah, there's one. Okay, that's great. Okay, so he's asking, did you have any work experience after engineering? Did you complete any CFA charters to strengthen your profile?
Yeah, so while I was in Greece, I did two engineering internships, and one was finance related. But before coming to LBS, I did the investment management certificate, which is specifically here for the UK. It's around 30% of CFA level 1, and it includes both specific finance related questions. It's by the CFA UK and about the local regulation. And then I did my CFA level 1 before coming here, and I did level 2 last year, and I was about to do level 3 this year, but because of COVID, it's been postponed for 1 year. And since you're asking, I would say that definitely a CFA would help you stand out in the finance industry. I think level 1, many people have it nowadays, so it's something of a must-have for an entry level. But if you have level 2 or higher, and I had some friends that are actually headed before coming to LBS level 3. This will help you stand out 100%.
Awesome. It's getting very competitive every passing day, right? That's the situation. Anyways, there's one more for you, I believe. So the question is, when did you, Yannis, start your preparation for applying to the MBA program? How many days before the application deadline was this?
Okay, so as I said, I had it on the back of my mind that I did a master's in management program, but I think it's kind of the similar the deadlines for MBA. I think the recommended, and you did an MBA as well, Mike, you can complement on that, but I think you should start preparing roughly a year before the program. So if you want to apply as soon as possible if you can. So if you want to, for 2021, you should probably start applying September, October, November if you can, because there are more slots and it's more probable that you'll get accepted. So if either you want to do a master's in management program or an MBA, you need to prepare to study for the GMAT, study for GRE or IELTS or any other specific language certificates that you may need to do. You need to think about references. So you may need references from uni or references from work, and generally how you can complement your profile as much as you can in that year. Of course, you also have to decide where you're going, but this is an ongoing process where you prepare your profile and make a list of the universities where you want to apply to. And then as soon as you start building your application, depends on how efficient you are and whether you want to use an external help for writing your essays. For example, it can take you from a few weeks to some people take even 3 months or so. I started thinking about going that maybe I need to come to LBS and do a second master's in September. By December, late December, I finalized my decision that I'll come to LBS, and then I spent roughly 2.5 months, almost 3 months preparing, studying for the GMAT and doing all the things I could to make my application as strong as possible before applying in April. But generally, I would say the earlier you start, the stronger your application will have, because you'll have to spend more time building and tailoring it for the applications you make.
Yes, I fully agree. I mean, I think 1 year in advance is probably a good idea. And I mean, mine was also quite a while ago. Back in 2011 is when I went to my MBA. But yeah, it took quite a while to actually prepare the entire application. And I remember I had applied in the first round itself. So yeah, I mean, it's better to sort of I mean, typically the advice is that you should apply when you're ready, but I would say that okay, it's better that you be ready as soon as you can, right? So in that sense, if you start early, it gives you a heads up. I just taken the GMAT like with 1 or 2 months of preparation. I just booked a date for the test, and I said, okay, now this is the deadline I have in front of me, and I need to sort of prepare for it. So that's how I sort of started. And then once the test was done, uh, I obviously focused on the essays and the application process, which obviously was quite intense because I was applying to a bunch of different schools, both in the US and Europe. So yeah, so you have to think of so many things in terms of networking, talking to people, talking to professors and faculty as well, and obviously thinking very, very strongly about what do you want to do about after the MBA, right? That's a key component of your story. So that has to really make sense for you to have a strong application. Cool. So coming back to the questions, so there's one COVID related. In light of the COVID-19 situation, do you recommend going ahead with the program or deferring the program to the next year, especially for an MBA? I think Yannis, what would be your views on that? That's a great question, actually.
Yeah, that's a great question and difficult one to answer, I would say. Usually an MBA program here at LBS, it's 2 years. A key component of an LBA program is all the networking and the connections you make with all your classmates who hopefully will go and achieve great things. So you will have this great network of friends and classmates that last for life. So that is one of the key components you will miss if you only do online lessons. Another thing is actually here, living here in London, living the life together with university, doing all the extracurriculars. If everything is online, then you probably won't be able to do that. On the other hand, postponing for 1 year, you also have to consider what you're going to do in this year. If you're currently working and you like what you do, then by all means, 1 year won't make that much of a difference, and it will be better when everything is settled to go and live the full MBA experience. If on the other hand you want to make a career shift, a career change, and you want to make this as soon as possible, then you can start with online lessons this fall. Hopefully we will have some form of vaccine by the end of the year, or some form of let's say a medicine that will prevent most of the deaths. So hopefully life can become more normal in 2021 onwards, so you may only lose 1/4 of the full program. So again, you have to decide the pros and cons. It depends on your current situation. I would say that if you're currently working and you're not rushing it, I would postpone it for a year. But that's my personal view.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult decision, I would say. And again, there are really, you have to answer the question for yourself. You can talk to like 500 people and they will all give you different answers. So it's really up to you to think through and process it in your head, that what is it that you want to do, right? I mean, I can give you my 2 cents as well. I would say that this might be the greatest time to go for an education as well, right, from an MBA perspective, because think of it that the competition right now is less, right? There are a lot of schools I know which are also still opening up their wait lists. So you can get a tag of a great school like a HBS or a LBS or Wharton or whatever in these years. Get that education, and it's a stamp that you have for your life. And if you compare things to, let's say, the 2008 recession, by the end of 2 years, when, let's say, imagine you went to school in 2008 and you graduated in 2010. By 2010, the economy had fully recovered, right? So things were back again. There were lots of jobs out there, and things were looking very, very bright. Obviously, 2008 is not what we have right now. So maybe there are differences, but still, if you think about it, 2 years is a long, long time for things to come back in the economic cycle and the job market and everything, right? So from that perspective, it might just be a great time to go to school. But then obviously there are a lot of other factors. There are a lot of other risks which might be there, which might make it a very difficult decision for you in general. I think the biggest risk is obviously the online situation, and if you are obviously not a European national or not a UK national, and you need a visa, that's where things get really tricky, right? Especially in the US. So tons of things to think about, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would say think from your heart, think from your mind, and try to do what is best, what you think you can take the best decision. And then once you have the decision, don't look back, just look forward. That would be my advice. Cool. Moving to the next question, which is about the loan. The question is like, how are the living expenses calculated or estimated? So the answer to that is fairly simple. We get that from the school, right? So every school, they give us a number, or what they say is the COA. COA is comprising of two things, which is the tuition amount and basically the living expenses. So that tuition fee obviously comes from the school, but the living expense number also is given to us by the school. Cool. There's a question about loan giving to Indian business school. The answer is yes, but something to remember is that it will be a dollar loan. It will not be a INR loan. If you're okay with a dollar loan, you are more than welcome to take that ISB loan from Prodi Finance. Okay, cool. I think we have most of our questions covered. Any, let's say, closing notes or closing thoughts from Yannis you want to, let's say, advise the group here? Just your closing thoughts if you want to share.
I would say overall that either a master's degree or an MBA at the top business school, it's one of the it will be one of the greatest experience you will have in life. Both, as I said, all the things, how it will impact your career, your life, your friends. I have no many MBA people that are actually married. They found their partner at business school. So it's an amazing experience. It's a you have to take a little bit a leap of faith, because usually you move abroad, there are so many unknowns, but at the same time there are so many opportunities. And I would say that you should go for it if you can do it. It's for me it was one of the best years of my life, and it will be with me forever. So I would recommend it 100%. If you can go and do something like a master's on an MBA top school, go for it.
Awesome. That's brilliant, and I would also second that, Yannis. I think for me as well, it was a great experience. I went to IESC Business School in Barcelona, and the fact that like being in Barcelona for 2 years, it's a lovely city, it's a lovely experience. And besides that, obviously the school was also great in terms of academics and everything else that I went through in those 2 years. It was a really good experience, and not just MBA. I would say like studies in general, right? Higher studies and upgrading and upskilling in general. If you take time out for yourself and upgrade your skill set, that's something you do it for yourself, right? And it's really valuable. And given that the things are changing so fast in the world is moving so fast. It's really essential that we keep ourselves upgraded and skilled all the time. So with that, I think let's close this. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Yannis, for spending time on weekend
Thank you for
with
having
us.
me.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure. And for all the participants, really thank you for spending that time. I apologize for the initial glitches that we had. The audio was really not coming, and I could not hear Yanis speak, and probably Yanis was unable to hear me or see me. I don't know. We had major technical issues,
Yeah, it
but
happens.
but yeah, I mean, overall, I think we covered ground, and we were hopefully able to answer most of your questions. If there is anything else, you can hit us up on the website. There is an events page where you will see a WhatsApp link, WhatsApp, sorry, QR code. You can join that. If you have any further questions, you can basically reach out to us on WhatsApp for a sort of more, let's say, one-on-one conversation. Uh, and on that note, I would wish to thank you once again, and hope you have a great rest of the Sunday and a good week ahead. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a good Sunday.
Bye bye.